New this week from DC Comics, The Demon from the Darkness by Matt Wagner. That's right, it's another classics review. A lot of factors have conspired in order to make this the subject of this week's video. First of all, it was my birthday last weekend, so I missed out on all of the comics from last week, which sucks because there was a lot of really cool titles. But don't worry, I intend on catching up. Second of all, I was too slow on choosing another subject for a longer form classics review for when we hit 200 followers, because we already have, yay! Thank you so much for watching this channel and for supporting my videos and sharing them with friends. This has been a really enriching and exciting passion project for me this year, and I can't wait to keep trying to make the best videos I can for you. But back to the video. So ultimately, this is going to be more of a long-winded opinion piece about the state of comics as opposed to a traditional review of the book. But I hope that if you're a fan of Etrigan or DC Comics in general, that you'll stick around and share your opinion on the subject as well. As most comic book fans are aware, Marvel Comics has a long history of copying DC Comics and vice versa. Where there's a Green Arrow, there's a Hawkeye. Where there's a Thanos, there's a Darkseid. Where there's a Catwoman, there's a Black Cat. If you give me a Superman, I'll give you a Sentry. And the list truly goes on and on and on. This trend doesn't stop with the comics though, as with the meteoric rise of comic book filmmaking, we can demonstrably see the influence and allusion to the style and tone of films created by either company. With the surprise success of the Guardians of the Galaxy in 2014, which was almost universally attributed to the tongue-in-cheek comedic style and boundlessly adventurous tone, DC Films rushed to create their first offering, The Suicide Squad, in 2016, in hopes of capturing the same magic formula. This trend continued apace with the advent and popularity of the Avengers films in 2012 and 2015, encouraging DC to centralize itself and give us the Justice League as quickly as possible. We can debate all day about the success and intent of both MCU and DCU films, which honestly, I don't want to do. I'm just so tired, aren't you? But the point I'm attempting to highlight here is the pattern of either publisher filling the proverbial wall of intellectual property with archetypal, intriguing, entertaining characters as the cement. And this practice is arguably a sound one. Especially for the comic book industry in its early years, where editors on either side, struggling to gain a foothold in the literary market, could not afford for someone else to provide a product they did not. This practice of indirect replication is also evidence of a fundamental short-sightedness from either company, relegating characters to an archetype or thematic box that only writers recently have begun to revise, spurring the question that perhaps these early creators didn't quite understand the potential some of these characters possessed. Which is, of course, a time-honored comic book nerd conversation. I don't even mean that as a joke, really, because that's one of the things I love about comics is that there's so much to talk about. A clear example of a character not being quite understood in the case of DC is, of course, Hawkman. The design of the character is a clear embellishment not of a Marvel character, but of the Hawkmen from Flash Gordon comics created by Alex Raymond that predate both Marvel and DC. For years, Hawkman's motivations and origins were mere speculations that only slowly developed through Justice League comics as opposed to the traditional solo title series. It wasn't really until 2019 that writer Robert Venditti treated the character's origins and thematic function with an earnest pen, giving us one of the most profoundly beautiful series in DC's history, and I will stick by that. For Marvel Comics, the most glaring example of an organically reworked legacy character is, of course, Venom. In 2018, Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman introduced a pivotal new direction for the character of Eddie Brock and Venom, which has since gone on to elevate the character from a street-level villain to a cosmic time-traveling god, which is the most extreme and drastic change that I can think of. However, even before this, Marvel was experimenting with new directions for the character as early as 2010, focusing on Flash Thompson mostly with Agent Venom, Venom Space Knight, and Venom in the Guardians of the Galaxy team. The key takeaway from this big editorial change being allowing writers to grow and evolve characters over time by taking chances with genre, theme, major life events can lead to something groundbreaking. But what, I can hear you asking, does all of that have to do with Matt Wagner's book, Demon from the Darkness from 1986. Well, put plainly, I believe that Etrigan the Demon is DC's foremost tragically underutilized character with the most potential for revival in comics and in film. Etrigan the Demon does not have the loftiest of origins in comics. created under protest by Jack Kirby, who would much rather have been working on the New Gods storyline that DC initially hired him to create. In fact, Etrigan the Demon was only conceived to fill DC's perceived lack of monster or horror-adjacent characters that Jack Kirby didn't really have any interest in writing. However, the popularity of the first issue in 1972 led to a 16-issue series from Kirby, cementing the character in the annals of DC's early history. You would think that the sudden surprise popularity of the character would have encouraged DC to include the character in its future plans, but it wasn't until 1986, a full 10 years later, that Matt Wagner returned to the character outside of cameos and team-ups.